5:30 or 5:31. I'm going to call the meeting of the Middleton Community Development Authority for February 11th, 2021 to order. So the first item is Abby, the roll call. We have everybody, it looks like it now. So, well, go ahead, the roll call, please.
Barker,
Here.
Barron,
Here.
Furlong,
Here.
Nelson. We don't have Nelson yet. Oakes,
Okay.
Here.
Olson,
Here.
and Weber.
Here.
All right. So we will keep an eye open for Katie. So, okay. All right. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of January 14th, 2021.
I'll make a motion to approve. I've reviewed them. This is Kieran.
Okay. Need a second. Right.
Second.
Okay, second by Belinda. So any changes, any questions? Okay, so the motion is to the minutes of the CDA for January 14th, 2021. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion passes. So we are on to the first item on the agenda, the financial reports. So Abby,
Yep.
and I know Karen had a lot of questions, or good questions, great questions. So go ahead.
Well, I reached out to Jessica Taylor in our finance department to generate a new report, and she said that nothing had changed. So I didn't have her go through that step. I just included the one from the last meeting. There was one item that you asked me to follow up on, and that was whether the hand sanitizer station rental could be covered in the CARES Act funding. And I went back and looked at that, and we paid for the enhanced cleaning around the downtown and at the green with CARES Act funding, but we did not pay for the hand sanitizers with CARES Act. So that's the only update that I had.
Okay. So Karen, you have some questions, or anybody else?
Yep, I'm going to weigh in with my question when ready, or shall I fire away, Abby? Okay. Yes, on the financial reports. So one, obviously, you know, I'm relatively new on the committee and I'm beginning to get my head around things. And I can see that, look, first of all, wonderful that we had positive net revenue for the past year, even with everything that was going on. So that's great. Now, the major revenue item is, of course, the transfer in, which my understanding is that comes in via local taxation through the TIF financing. And it's my understanding that that's going to expire at some point, Abby. Could you just remind us all when that happens?
So 2025 is the end of the expenditure period for TIF District 3, which covers the downtown.
Right. So that means that line of revenue, that 70,000 there, that would essentially disappear in 2025 or 2026, right?
That's correct. Yes.
Excellent. Okay. Because then when I was looking at our assets as well, you know, there's 653,000 or so in cash on the balance. And that's obviously a great resource. I'm wondering what possibilities there is to utilize that, what restrictions there are on it, because I just think longer term thinking for the CDA, we could plan, you know, 4 or 5 years out now, that 70,000 will disappear. Is there something that we can begin to build now to replace that revenue through an investment at this point? So it's more of a question and maybe a future topic for discussion, but perhaps you could let me know what, you know, with that cash balance, what are the possibilities to utilize that from the committee's point of view?
So Abby, you can talk to Bill and see what we can do with this, or Jessica. I know we cannot invest in GameStop or whatever that is stock when it's at $4 and sell it at 400. So
Right. I was thinking more along the lines of, is there a possibility to acquire additional assets in downtown, additional buildings, something like that?
I know, but
Yeah.
it just
But in terms of short-term investments, that was a question, because another thing, Abby, I noticed was we had budgeted for $5,000 of revenue from interest.
Mhm.
I don't know any bank out there who's given more than a sliver of a fraction of a percent in interest these days. So I'm not surprised
Mhm.
that did not come in this year. But I'm always just, when I see a chunk of capital like 650,000 sitting there, I'm like, well, what can we do to put that to work somehow to create some additional revenue for the CDA and the city?
Yeah, and on the interest item, Karen, I do want to check in with our finance director, because I wonder if there was some interest, but that it gets transferred over into our fund,
Right.
sometime early in the year, and we just haven't seen that yet. I think it's a great idea to look at long-term sustainability for the CDA fund. And obviously, like, one of the biggest assets that the CDA owns right now is the senior center building. And aside from the portion that houses the Hubbard Activity Center, the CDA doesn't see any revenue from that building. So that's one consideration that I know Mike and Bill and I have discussed previously. I'm sure that there are other options. Mike is probably more familiar with them than I am, and I think we could also reach out to our finance director and get more info as well.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
oh yes, Mike, yes. Go
Uh,
ahead, Mike.
to that question for Kieran and everybody who's interested, the CDA can be a landlord, and we are. So that's something we could do. We just couldn't invest in commercial investments of any sort. We're limited by state law in what we can do with that regard.
Right. So maybe, and I see Kathy's got her hand up. Kathy, you want to weigh in with something there?
Oh,
Well,
okay.
I just wanted to make a comment that what part of the discussion at budget this year was that this downtown snow removal, if moving it into public works, and is that right, Abby? Was it the whole 25,000, or was it a portion of that? And that would, if we didn't have any, if we lost the income, that we wouldn't be able to do that any longer either. So.
Right. Okay. So maybe something we could propose then, Mike, with that in mind, that there are certain restrictions on what we can do with the CDA assets, but there are other things we can do, such as own property and have rental income from that. Maybe that's a topic I'd like to propose for a future meeting, Abby, a discussion around that. Or perhaps we want to have a subcommittee or something to look at that on a more detailed basis and then report back to the broader CDA. Either way, I just think it's something that, hey, let's try and do it now before 2024 arrives at our doorstep.
Yeah, I think if we went the working group route, where we just had a couple members that were really interested in this particular topic, we could probably meet with Bill Burns sometime on a Zoom during the day. He's our finance director, and he's a whiz, and I'm sure he'd have lots of ideas. Or if we decided to go the other route, Mike and I could meet with Bill and then report back to you all. There are, I think, lots of options to consider. A couple things that come to my mind. One is, when the TIF 3 closes, we're likely to look at University Avenue, the University Avenue corridor, for a new TIF district, but that probably can't happen until 2030 unless we decide to close TIF District 3 early.
Right.
And we probably would want to cover the downtown even with a new TIF district, because we want to continue to invest in, the heart of our community. And so it might be a possibility to get some ongoing revenue from that. Of course, TIF districts are slow to start, so there might not be a whole lot of increment to begin with. And TIF District 3 is one of the most successful districts in the state, so it's been able to be pretty generous to the CDA. The other thing that Mike and the Public Lands Department and I have been talking about is the Stonehorse Green. The idea is that we would have the Public Lands Department handle programming and reservation for the green, but that means that any revenue for rentals goes to the Public Lands Department, whereas the costs for maintaining the green come from the CDA. So that's another idea. I would gladly let the Public Lands Department handle that, because our department is so small and we do not have the staff capabilities to handle like reserving a space. But that's something to think about. And then also like trying to take the items that are really general city operating expenses like snow removal and move those over to the general fund so that the CDA is not incurring those costs every year.
Right. Well, and I think, Abby, yeah, you're probably right, letting the appropriate department within the city handle that kind of management of an asset. But there's probably an agreement to be had where, okay, there's going to be an allocation that flows back to the CDA for, helping get these things put in the first place or whatever it might be. Essentially, you look at it almost like an R&D department in a company, right? That, okay, there's a business unit now that's generating revenue, but let's put a portion of that revenue back to the entity that's thinking of, well, what else can we do downtown that can create some revenue generating activities. So in terms of a working committee, Abby, I mean, I think that's a good idea. I'd volunteer for it just to be in the conversation and try to get an understanding. But I'm looking at it going 650K, let's call it 700,000. And we're going to have a whole of 70,000. So we're looking at 10%, return on assets, if you like, which is ambitious, but we're at least in the same ballpark. We're looking at a chunk of capital that we can put to work to hopefully fill a hole that we all know is going to happen in 4 years. So,
so who else would like besides Karen? So Karen would be interested. So if you're interested, let Abby know, or you could let me know now. So I think that's a good idea. I really like this. So
this is Kathy. I would be interested.
Okay, Karen and Kathy. So we
Dan
could have
Barker too.
Okay, Dan. So we can probably have that. Could we have one more, or that's probably it? We don't. Otherwise, we will have to have that listed as a meeting, right?
Yeah, we have 8. So yeah, we can't have 4. We can only have 3.
Okay, so wonderful. So Karen and Kathy and Dan Barker. Okay, and then Bill and Mike and Abby. Okay. So how do we can have some, other time this discussion, but what the Community Development Authority is doing is so limited. I'm just hoping that we can do a lot more. And so if you have some ideas, I think Kari got a lot of ideas here. So anyway, if you could think of something, I know we used to have this plan where we were helping people, helping with the down payment. And, we need to do more than what we are doing. And then, of course, we need to find the source of money too. But once we could identify the things where we could really have a much larger impact than what we do now, that would be awesome. But we can have that also an agenda item and start thinking about it, because we can do more. And Kari has her hand up, and you are up, Kari. So
thank you. I guess I'm super excited to hear that there's a possibility of University Avenue also, because I think that the issues and the character of that part of downtown are going to be completely different, and there's going to be some opportunity for growth of the CDA mission there. If you look at who both the retail tenants and people who live in that area, are, I think that we can accomplish more of what is the broader part of our service. And then I guess the only other comment I wanted to make is sort of like piggybacks on what Karen was saying, that I really do, and the mayor, I want to be more than just like a checkbook for cool downtown events, which is important. Like we do that and cool things happen because we fund them. But I think if we can become, maybe through Stonehorse Green and then moving into University Avenue, have like a more authentic engagement with the issues and do more than just sort of fun events. I think it will be helpful.
Yeah, and another thing that we haven't talked about at all is the community campus plan and how that gets implemented. And so, you know, it's possible that the senior center building that the CDA owns stays exactly like it is in the new community campus, or it's possible that it's incorporated into a larger development. I think that there would be a possibility for the CDA to own some space within the new community campus building, but I'm not sure the logistics of how that would all work out. But it's something to think about.
Excellent. Any other, oh, Karen, go
Kieran?
ahead.
Yeah, I just to follow on and in terms of your call, Mayor, for new ideas. Abby, a question. In order for us to have something on the public agenda to discuss at the meeting, how far in advance do you need that?
I usually put the agenda out. I try to put the agenda out for the CDA the week before, but this time it came out early this week. So ideally I would have it by like 1 week before the meeting.
Okay, good. So I think that's just a note then to everyone on the committee, if we've got new ideas of things to talk about. One thing that I think would be useful, Abby, I'm not sure if there's a forum in which we could do this, but to interact with some of the other committees in order to, you know, stimulate some of these ideas, because I can see crossover between what we're doing and tourism, the arts committee as well. For example, Mayor, I know you and I had talked before around, hey, is there some kind of festival that we could look at doing that would become a unique event that ultimately could build to be a draw to Middleton for something? And obviously that's something that we could play a role in, but we'd obviously want to coordinate and get input from, you know, other committees like the tourism committee and the arts committee and so on as well. So I don't know if there's a forum in which to do that kind of cross-committee brainstorming, but that's definitely something that would be useful, I think.
Oh, we can create, Karen, that's a great idea. And we can create it. We could have a joint meeting of, you know, tourism, CDA, and whoever else you think would be helpful. And I like your idea of festival or anything, you know, it would be awesome. Let's create some more life in Middleton. So I think that's, I know you helped create some of the program in Ireland or.
Yeah, I think when we talked,
yes.
participated and worked in, but it had already been going for 30 years by then. But my hometown of Wexford in the southeast of Ireland, similar in size to Middleton, I think, you know, for the most part, when I was growing up, around 17,000 people. And it actually has carved out a niche for itself at this opera festival. And it kind of specializes in performing obscure, no longer performed operas. And so it's not trying to compete with, you know, the major centers and major festivals, but it's got this own unique niche that brings people from all over the country, from other countries, to this one small town in the middle of October. And the reason it started was there was a local doctor who was an opera fan and a local hotelier who was his best friend. And they were putting their heads together saying, what can we do to keep hotel rooms full in between the summer season and the holiday, you know, the Christmas holiday season? And this is what they came up with. And it has been a huge success for the town. Now that's just one example, but I would be open to other ideas around is there something that we could use like that to put Middleton on the map? And we've already got some quirky stuff. Like I love that we have the National Mustard Museum, you know, hey, think of something that's unique and different. There it is. And there's people come from all over to go see the National Mustard Museum. So yeah, I think, again, just brainstorming on some of these ideas would be good with some other committees as well.
Okay, Chris Weber. So
hey,
yes.
quick to add on to that, you know, just brainstorming too. One of the things that Blackhawk and Pleasant View have done is really stepped up their game with the trail riding, the mountain bike trails that they have. Huge investments of time and resource, and those trails are sweet. I have been out on them. I know a lot of people that are out on them. These are trails that people will come for miles to come ride all day, all weekend, just throwing that out there, that that's something that we could potentially, make as an event. We could create an event that would last, a day, turn it into a weekend activity, and I think it has potential to get Middleton as a community that embraces this kind of activity.
Wow, that's awesome, Chris. Yes, I walk that trail rather than ride it. I think if you are over 40 or whatever, so you have to be good at riding bikes. So.
I take my daughters out there. There are actually lots of beginner trails too that you don't even have, as long as you can just ride a bike, some really super flat trails that are just great. There is something, that's the other neat thing about those trails, is that they've made an investment, not just for the high end Xterra games type trail riders, but things that families could go out there and enjoy. If you haven't been out there, I really encourage you to get out and see what we have just in our backyard over on the west side of town, next to the Blackhawk ski jump area.
It is excellent. So you should, from the top, you can't even tell. So, but then you start walking, and it's quite long. So you have to be, well, if you're riding bike, it will be not as long. But if you're walking, as I was, so and it's enjoyable. So it's all in the woods too. So well, there's some outside too, but a lot of them in the woods. Great idea. So keep those ideas coming, and we should be more than just snow removal and some of the other things. And at the next meeting, I know the D is going to come up with how we can plant the flowers and create a little paradise. So we're going to have a Mike and Julian gardens on the west side of the city hall in that green part. Mike and his wife's name is Julian. So I think we can make those gardens. People would just sit there and do a lot of those great things. It would be simply amazing. So I am sure that I got some ideas, and Dee would too. But having those flower garden there and having the flowers around the parking lot, she's bringing that to us soon, I think. So she got hurt. She had some accident. That's why she's not here. But we have an opportunity besides just snow removal, just keeping people happy, starting in spring, summer, and fall, and then of course remove snow too. So great ideas, and let's make it happen. And we can be more than just that. So I think wonderful. So do you need a motion to approve, or this is just
Nope.
just
an update?
It's just an update. All right. Anything more money related? So I think I still would like that if we can get that down payment plan back again somehow. And if Abby, you can talk to people who can help us out, because there are some people who, we want people who can afford it to help them out. So it would be good. All right.
Well, one other request, Mayor,
Yep.
and Abby, I sent this by email, but for a future meeting, it would be really useful to have an overview of TIF and how it all works. I know that Kathy and Abby and you probably know it forwards and backwards, but it's all news to me. So I'm trying to figure my way out through it. But I think it would be good for all of us to just understand how it currently works, what a future one from 2030 onwards would look like with the university, but also just as we plan for the future, just to understand how TIF works and why it's going to expire and that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. So Abby, you can ask Bill. I'm with the Zoom call. He can give us a couple of those slides. He presented a few slides he presented his city council. So he would love to do it, right?
I don't even think we need Bill. I think Mike and I can take that, but we have access to all of his slides that he's put together. So we've got it.
Okay. All right.
Just really quick, I had one idea. So Kieran was talking about interaction with other committees, and
Yep.
we have had joint committee meetings before when there's a particular topic of interest, but I was wondering if maybe the city is getting ready to do a strategic plan, which Mike is spearheading, and we're working with some consultants to help us develop it. And I'm wondering if maybe that joint meeting and that brainstorming session for the downtown would actually fall under the strategic plan, where we could get the consultant to kind of lead the discussion and make it focused on the downtown and embed some of the ideas that come out of that into the plan. Just an idea. I don't know what you think about that, Mike.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, we could do that too. So, wow, boy, Mike is super. Okay, so let's make that happen. So either way, we can have both. So I think, you know, as long as we limit our discussions and be, you know, respectful of other people's time. So I think it should be okay. So we want to make sure whatever we do is productive and it's moving forward. So, okay. Item number 2, authorized contract for new soil for downtown planters. So, Abby,
So, yeah, so this was a request from our city forester working with Dee, our horticulturalist. And the reason that they're asking for this is that the soil that is in there now, they believe it has a fungus problem, and it killed off a lot of the plants that they had in the pots this year. And so they don't believe that fertilizer is gonna do it. And the reason that we're asking for it so early is that they need to place the order for the summer plants with the Bruce Company. And if we're gonna go with the same type of flowering plants that we've had in the pots in the past, then they think that we need to replace the soil. They said that there are some hardier plants that would be okay, even if there is a problem with the soil, but they would need to change the order that they normally do with the Bruce Company if we can't get the new soil for the planters. So this is a cost of, I think, about $3,500. And there is enough money, at least according to our expenditures in 2020, within the landscape, downtown landscape and maintenance item. We ended 2020 with about 4,900 unspent from our budget. So there, you know, if you decided to approve this expenditure, we probably would be okay with sticking with that line item. And Kari has her hand raised.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to know how long that soil has been in there, and barring like a drastic infection or something, about how long dispatch will last.
That's a great question, and hang with it. And I'm going to text Mark Wegner. He's on call here for me tonight, and somebody else can answer or ask a question.
Because I think it should be thought of something that probably should be like amortized over time, that every so often it's got to happen.
Good.
Yeah, so I guess the alternative is put down some fungicide, but it sounds like that's probably not a good idea. Is Dee, what's her take on this? I mean, I just think we heard a great presentation from her last time, and I'm just wondering, has she been consulted on this, or what's her take, given that she might be the person who's ending up selecting what plants to put where?
Yeah, and this was a joint recommendation from Dee and Mark Wegner, our forester. He's her supervisor.
Okay. Then if they're both recommending it, I guess I'm willing to go along. And the next question then was just, okay, you know, 3,500, whatever it was, is that the right price? Do we know what we're getting? I mean, I calculated as what, like $50 per planter, which given.
Wow, Ken, I came up with the same number. Isn't that amazing? Awesome.
We can both do long division. How about that?
Yeah,
I feel like that's pretty good.
Even the big planters and the small planter, I said, well, let's just go with the one number.
It's labor, exactly. It's labor.
And that's quite a bit of money for soil for, you know, one planter, $50. So.
Well, but I was kind of factoring in the labor time. By the time you've got something, it'll take them, you know, half an hour to an hour to do it. So, you know, to my mind, the cost didn't seem crazy or completely, you know, pulled out of thin air. But I just wanted to know if everyone else is kind of comfortable with the expense as it is.
Well, the other thing is, if it's a fungus issue, you got to decontaminate those pots. Otherwise, you put a new soil, and if you don't sterilize them or decontaminate them, it won't do you any good, because the fungus can grow very, very quickly. So,
well, if we're only taking off the top layer, wouldn't the fungus still be in there?
They probably are going to empty it, I think.
Well, it said the top 12 inches.
Oh, well, that doesn't top 12. Hello. So that will be one bag per planter, $2. So
I
$5.
think that I think that they might only be 12 inches deep though. They have a false bottom, so the entire planter is not filled with soil. I'm not sure how deep it is, but I think that might be removing the whole amount of soil. That's the way that Mark Wegner presented it to me.
Well, other questions. I think if you don't sterilize those parts, it isn't going to do you any good if it's a fungus problem, or unless you put something in the soil that the fungus won't grow. But that's what Karen had said, that sterilize, put some fungicide there. So.
Yeah, unfortunately, Mark hasn't written back to me. Oh, wait, he just did. He said he doesn't think that it has ever been replaced. He's been with the city for 11 years and it definitely hasn't been replaced during that time.
So
Okay.
I feel like it's time.
Okay, so so Bruce is going to do the everything, remove it, bring the soil and replace it. So.
That's correct.
Okay.
I think I'd be more comfortable if it said they were going to remove all the soil and get rid of any fungus in there in the planters instead of just the 12 inches. I would guess there's more than 12 inches in there because those plants get really big and I would think they'd have some sort of.
Yeah, I agree that somehow if you don't take care of the problem and you take care of the symptoms, that isn't going to do any good. Well, it may last a few months, but depending upon what the fungus is, fungus actually grows very quickly. So.
Mayor, those two are the subject matter experts, are they not?
Right.
Yes.
You can tell it's clearly not me.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get my buddy here to reply via text. But yes, they are. Yeah, it would, our horticulturalist and our forester, I think that they would know.
Yeah, fair.
Well, if they're comfortable with removing the 12 inches and they think that'll solve the problem.
Okay, so somebody want to make a motion with making sure that they take care of the problem, where if they need to, sterilize the parts or whatever they need to do, and conditional, because we don't want this, they're coming back next year again. So.
Well, I have a question. If anyone feels the price being charged is exorbitant.
It does look well, the soil itself would be not that much, but I guess it's the labor. I don't have any thought about that. So I don't know how long it's going to take. So.
Yeah. So Dan, I mean, that was my question from my own standpoint. I've done some, back of envelope calculations. I was like, okay, given the labor is probably involved, it seems to be in the ballpark from what I would expect, but definitely open to hearing from other members of the committee to see if there's any alternative points of view on that.
Katie, what do you think? Katie's here now, so let's hear from Katie.
It doesn't sound out of bounds to me. Good soil is expensive, and we want decent soil if we're going to expect it to last a decade. I don't know if that's the appropriate time frame we want to expect out of each batch, but sounds like if the last version lasted that long, then it's not cheap at all. I mean, it's not expensive at all.
Yep.
Good idea. Good idea. And Belinda, what do you think?
Had to unmute. I think you're right. I think some of the cost is coming from the labor. But in terms of soil plus the labor, I think that cost is probably in line with what one would expect.
Okay. Okay. So somebody is ready to make a motion?
Yes, I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay. And
I'll second it. This is
okay.
Kieran.
And it's conditional that they want to make sure they solve the problem, not just the symptoms. So.
Mayor,
Yes.
just one other historical note. because that's what I'm good for these days.
Oh, good, good.
The Elmwood was completed, reconstructed in 2003, and the planters came about in 2004. So we're actually going on 17 years.
Wow. So no wonder it's good to have a city administrator for 23 years. Well, I didn't look at those planters. I was doing other things at the time. Right? So wonderful. Great information. So any other questions or comments before we call the motion? Okay, all those on the favor of the motion to authorize the contract for new soil with Bruce's company for $3,495 to take care of the fungus problem, and say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? So, all right. Abby, so there you go. We are on to the last item, which is Abby's favorite, by the way. Stonehorse Green. Updates and discussion on the Stonehorse Green. So it's going to get going soon, Abby, right? So
I sure hope so. I just wanted to give I'm kind of thinking we can kind of keep this on the agenda for the CDA, and I can continue to update you all on progress. I pulled these slides from a presentation that I gave to the committee of the whole. So apologies to anybody who sat in on the committee of the whole meeting on January 30th. But I just wanted to share with you our capital campaign committee. We have a leadership team and we have a team of advisors that are working on fundraising for the green. And I just wanted to refresh your memory on what the Stonehorse Green is going to look like when it's completed. The primary component that we're doing fundraising for is the band shell, because that is the portion of the project that's not eligible for TIF funding. There's something in the state statute that does not allow TIF funding to go toward a recreational facility. And so the band shell, the restrooms, and the storage, the cost for that component of the project, as well as all the utilities, sound, et cetera, is about $600,000. That's what we're fundraising for. We have $1 million for the rest of the project, and that's the component that we can use TIF 3 funding for. So just another image. And then the two primary components of the fundraising effort are naming rights. These are intended for larger donors, businesses in particular, to secure naming rights for various amenities within the project. And we have had one amenity sponsored. This is the contribution from Pleasant Roland to sponsor the fire kettle. Oh, Mike Davis has his hand raised.
It looks
Abby,
like that's a Mike Davis band playing there, isn't it, Abby? Yes, Mike, go ahead.
it could be. If it's anything related to Motown, it could be. All right, so Abby, I was going to ask if this is on the website. If it is, I couldn't find it. I was trying to show a group of people this morning about sponsorship opportunities, and I couldn't find this one.
I don't. You mean the city website or the Stonehorse Green website?
The Stonehorse Green website.
Well, we're actually in the process of updating that right now. We met with our fundraiser yesterday afternoon, and Daphne is working on some updates to it. So I don't know if those are on the website yet, but they will be.
I had a group from the chamber that I meet with monthly, and they asked about it. And I said, I thought there was, but I couldn't find it on the website.
Could I come and speak to your group at their next meeting?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah,
Mike,
I mean, we'd love to
bring that. Mike will ask them to bring their checkbooks along, right?
Yeah, anything we can do to get the word out about the project. So if there are any groups that you all are familiar with that we should reach out to and just explain, the opportunities that we have available, we'd love to do that. And Dan has his hand raised.
Yep, Dan.
Abby, you mentioned a fundraiser. Have we got I'm ignorant. Have we got like a consultant that's helping us raise these funds, or?
Yes, we have had one, although her contract is completed at the end of this month. And so what she is responsible for is kind of setting up the whole structure of the campaign, developing a donor database, putting all of our campaign materials together in graphic designs. And then she's been calling the meetings of the Capital Campaign Committee together and kind of doing all the follow-ups via phone and email with the campaign committee members. But she was only under contract for a certain number of months. And so her contract is over at the end of this month. And we have one person on our campaign committee that's been really very involved with going out and meeting with donors. And unfortunately, that person is experiencing some unexpected health issues and is probably going to be stepping down at least for the next couple of months. There are limitations to what city staff can do. We cannot go out and ask for contributions from individual businesses, but we can make presentations to groups like chamber groups or, you know, other clubs in the city. So if there are any folks like that you can think of that might benefit from hearing about the opportunities, we'd be happy to do that.
Very good. And I appreciate all the work you and Mike and the mayor have done. I'm wondering, so do we feel the momentum she has started is sustainable, or do we need to look at perhaps bringing in yet another consultant to make sure we get this funded and put in place?
Well, I don't think we need a fundraising consultant because I think that we have like all the materials, we have the structure. But what we are looking for is some more ambassadors for the project. And so those don't have to be full leadership team members that are like going out and meeting with businesses, but we're trying to get a group of people together that are just regular neighbors in Middleton that are willing to kind of be ambassadors to the project, like telling their neighbor about the opportunity or sharing it on their social media page, those kinds of things. And we actually have all the templates and everything that's required. So that was one of my asks today, is to see if any CDA members would want to serve as an ambassador. Kathy is on the group that is doing the fundraising, and so she can tell you it's a lot of fun, and most of the work has already been done by our fundraising consultant.
Yes, it's fun.
Kieran has his hand raised.
Yes,
Oh,
I'm
Karen, go ahead.
to be an ambassador. I'll happily talk to my neighbors on the block here and say, look what's happening. This is great.
That is
Thank
awesome,
you.
Kieran. Thank you.
Me too.
Okay, so you got
Cool.
two
Thanks,
ambassadors.
Kari.
Yeah, between me and Carrie, we're gonna have a pincer attack on the Hubbard Elmwood area.
I have some friends in Lakeview. Like there's all these cool young families moving into the Lakeview neighborhood too. Like these are friends who are younger than I am. And I do feel like it's a little bit, I don't know what your materials look like, but selling the benefit of something like Stonehorse Green to people who live even a mile away can be a little bit of a challenge. So I'd love some coaching on some of that.
Why don't I set up a meeting with Amanda, our fundraiser, and both of you all like on Zoom before she
Sure.
leaves us at the end of the month, because she's so knowledge-able about this. She's leading the Madison Public Market Capital Campaign, and she's also
cool.
doing the Madison Youth Center, the Youth Arts Center. And so she will have lots and lots of ideas that I can
That
share.
sounds great.
And then just
Okay.
the last thing I think I already told you about at the last meeting, and that's the donor wall. And then I've updated the timeline for when we hope to open the green to the public. And this is contingent on us completing the fundraising by the end of this year, that we can put it out for construction and meet the downtown businesses timetable for construction, which is they really want it to happen as early as possible in 2022 to avoid their really busy months. And we've gotten some good quotes and materials from the downtown businesses for how important this is to their business and how much the green helped them survive during the pandemic. So we've got some updated materials on that to share. And then we hope to have it open to the public in June of 2022 at the latest.
Okay, any questions for Abby?
Abby,
The only
I
thing-
have.
Go ahead, Kathy, sorry. No, you go
I was
ahead.
looking in grants, and a lot of the grants, they want to have a nonprofit component to it. Is that something we should be setting up sooner than later so we can apply for grants?
Yeah, I know that setting up a nonprofit is not that cumbersome, but getting it designated 501c3 is quite a bit trickier. So I don't know, I think it depends on whether we would want the full 501c3 with the, the tax benefits and all of that. But that is something we should be working on, Kathy, because we eventually want to spin it off into a Friends of the Stonehorse Green so that we can have a group that's continuing to commit to keeping the green sustainable and program it heavily and make sure it can be successful.
I can start pulling the forms and looking at them and doing what I can to fill them out if you want. And if you think it's going to be Friends of Stonehorse Green, I can use that as a placeholder too. So I can look into it. I won't submit anything until we get formal approval, but.
Okay. If it's okay with the boss man, Mike, who looks like he's thinking about it, then it sounds great to me.
Talk about a group that could support Stonehorse Green after it's built. Because we're going through the Madison Community Foundation currently, right?
They are holding our fund, yes. But we're talking about like a nonprofit organization that can support the green, kind of like the Friends of Pheasant Branch or the Friends of the Middleton Public Library does.
Yeah.
Or apply
So
for
that makes
grants. Apply for grants now for that. So a lot of places when you fill out for grant applications, they want it to be for a nonprofit. Is what I saw.
Yeah, I guess right now they can, this is anything which you give to the Medicine Foundation, it will be tax deductible. But, in the long run, I think that's a good idea. I like that. It's great. We are coming up with a lot of great ideas. Wonderful. Karen, you have something? Kathy, are you done?
Yeah.
Okay, Karen?
We're just going to weigh in again. I mean, it's good to think of these things and joined up as possible. So to loop back to our earlier point about having some kind of event or festival that could serve as something to bring people to Middleton. If it's something that was hosted or held at Stonehorse Green, you could imagine this Friends of Stonehorse Green being the organizing group that runs that, generates revenue from the event. And again, just making sure we have as much joined up thinking as possible. I could see that being the ongoing entity that then maintains or manages the Stonehorse Green, with the major event or a series of events being the revenue stream to do so as well.
Excellent. Kari, Karen, you're done?
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Okay, Kari,
I just was going to say that even though it's the deep freeze right now, it's probably not too early to start looking at how the COVID trends are going and start thinking about more good things for spring and summer. I think we may be able to have more freedom. And I don't know if you all in the city are talking about this yet, but we're going to come to a point where people are going to want to have a cut point about whether people are vaccinated or not, and have that be a decider for activities. And I think we're going to start hearing about this. And I'm sure you're thinking and talking about this all the time, but I think that the Stonehorse Green really saved some people. And in my opinion, like from a public health perspective, it was a great harm reduction measure where it let people gather in a more safe fashion and have social connection. And I just want to think and talk about that early to make sure we can do everything we can to be on the right side of safety, but also let people have community as we kind of start to come out of this.
Excellent, excellent. And also remember that Mike's flower garden close to the city hall, that will be beautiful too. So flowers they make people happy. Flowers, nothing like those. So so Kathy, Karen, you can work with Kathy too. So you are on that one of the teams, and we put one of the 501c3 together 18 years ago, Friends of Kettle Pond. So yeah, it does take some work, but not too bad. So Kathy actually knows ins and outs. So any more questions for Abby or any other input? I think we want to make CDA very dynamic and, making a difference for our downtown and city, making a difference in the people's lives that they just want to come to this beautiful place called Middleton downtown. So I know we would also like some art, and Abby's working on those. So I think, yeah, I think we are doing something. So any other ideas for Stonehorse Green or anything else that you want to share before we say goodbye?
This is Katie, and I just was thinking about the fabulous new CXC trails. Chris was talking about the bike trails. And since we're going to have heated areas in Stonehorse Green, I think it would be really cool if there are some ski races, if we could have like pre or post race bashes down at Stonehorse would be very, very cool. And Good Neighbor Festival Run could start and end there. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that can be based there. And, you know, we could come up with some slogan like meet me at the green, or meet me, I don't know, meet me at the Stonehorse. And it goes from there.
Karen, you and Katie would really work together wonderfully, right?
I like it.
Yes, Chris too. So you know, you can, yeah, I think I like this, Katie. Great idea. So I think we do want to make a difference, but you know, we got to start somewhere. So I think it all begins with one idea. So like opera in Karen's hometown. So anything else before we adjourn? Okay, well, all right. We had great discussions. You guys, this is an awesome team. And even though we would like to keep talking, maybe we need a motion to adjourn. So,
I'll move.
all right, need a second.
I'll second. It's Katie.
Okay. All those in favor of the motion to adjourn, say aye.
I-
Hi.
Aye.
Wonderful. So we are adjourned, and we can still keep talking, but let's make the Stonehorse Green and Middleton downtown the envy of the whole Madison metropolitan area. And I think we can do it.
Right.
Agree.
Thanks, guys. Good night.
Thank you very
See you
much.
guys.
Everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Abby, remember the flowers, work with D, and let's have a Mike and Jolene garden west of the city hall.
Dee did get a Plant Dane grant. I don't know if
Okay.
you knew that, but she
Yeah,
got a
yeah.
grant to buy the native plants at a
Yeah.
low cost.
That's great. That's great.
Yep.
Wonderful. Let's
She'll
talk.
be at our next meeting.
See you.
Okay.